This is our first in-person meeting in almost 2 years, or a little over 2 years. And I'd like to welcome everyone here that's with us here in the chambers, and also staff that are here and the members that are here. Ms. Quillen, if you would please call the roll.
Councilmember Sidnor,
Welcome.
Mr. Wilson, Mr. Kish, Mr. Welford, Ms. Bonner,
Here.
Chairwoman Bettman,
Here.
Dennis Grant. You have a quorum, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Moving on to Agenda Item 2, the approval of minutes from the February 15th, 2022 meeting. Those were distributed to us via electronic means, and if everyone has had a chance to review those, are there any questions for staff? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes from the February 15th, 2022 meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you. Ms. Quillen, if you'll please call the roll.
Bonner,
Yes.
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Chairwoman Bettman.
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to Agenda Item 3, Amended Site and Landscape Plan and Resolution Number 22-05-PC 14160, Baltimore Avenue, filed by Messick and Associates. Also in this agenda item are a public hearing on the application and final action by Planning Commission.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and good evening, fellow Commission members. My name is Joshua Mitchum with the ECD staff, and I'll be giving the report. The applicant is seeking amended site and landscape approval to install a new loading dock and receiving area in the rear of the existing building located in the Laurel Lake Shopping Center. Currently, the unit space is unoccupied, and the unit space is located at west to the Best Buy store. The new loading dock and receiving area will be used by the new tenant, and the new tenant is DD's Discount Store. The following department and agencies were notified of the application, and comments were requested. Any responses received are written below, and the Department of Public Works has no issues with the project. The City of Laurel Police Chief has no comments recorded. The Department of Public Parks and Recreation has no issues with the project, and the City of Laurel Department of the Fire Marshal and Permit Services also received the comment of no issues with the project. The parking spaces, drive aisle, and the existing green space will not be removed or impacted during the improvement process, and the applicant states that there are currently no existing loading and or receiving units for the unit, so the proposed project will allow the unit to function at a higher capacity and with more efficiency. The new loading dock will have a 14-foot tall vinyl fence enclosure, and the new loading area will be 20 feet by 20 feet by 22 feet, with a total square footage of 452.16 square feet. And the new loading dock and receiving area with canopy height will be less than the existing building height, and the height of the building is proposed to be 4 feet off the ground. Staff recommends that the City of Laurel Planning Commission approve the amended site landscape plan with the following conditions. The applicant will obtain City of Laurel building permits for the required construction. The applicant will obtain a City of Laurel fence permit for the proposed fence enclosure, and the applicant shall comply with all applicable local, state, and federal laws and regulations for the protection and use of the property. That concludes the reading of my report, and the applicant from Messick and Associates, Mr. Tom Lanyon, is available for further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. Any questions for staff? Mr. Lanyon, did you want to present anything or just here for questions? Okay. If you would come to the mic, I just have one question, and I just wanted to make sure that if you could state your name and address for the record, please. It's on.
My name's Tom Slanian. I'm civil engineer, Messick and Associates, 1647 Secretariat, Annapolis, Maryland.
Thank you. My question is, there were some conditions in the staff report about permits and things. I just wanted to ask to make sure the applicant is in agreement with the staff report.
I agree, yes.
Thank you. Before he leaves, are there any questions for the applicant? Thank you very much. If there are no questions, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve amended site and landscape plan and resolution number 22-05 PC 14160 Baltimore Avenue, filed by Messick and Associates.
Thank you. Do we have
I will second the motion.
Before I ask for the roll call, if I could pause, we do have a motion and a second. I do not have anyone else signed up. However, I would, at 6:05, like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on this application? Hearing and seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. And if we could please call the roll. Thank you. Sorry for that.
Ms. Bonner,
Yes.
Mr. Welford,
Yes.
Mr. Grant, Chairwoman Bettman.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You're free to stay or free to leave. Moving on to agenda item 4, map amendment application number 925, ordinance number 1996, 14415 Greenview Drive, filed by CS Patuxent Greens LLC for recommendation to the mayor and city council. Mr. Love.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commission members. Good to see everybody in person. Before you is Map Amendment 925. The applicant is seeking a map amendment to construct an additional 61 dwelling units to bring the total of the development to 450 dwelling units at the development known as Patuxent Greens. Map Amendment number 880 was approved on January 26, 2018 for up to 450 single-family and townhouse dwelling units. So the preliminary subdivision plan resolution 18-05-PC and the final site landscape plan resolution 18-06-PC reduce the total permitted dwellings for the project to 389 units. The western portion of the project, which is the closest to the existing neighborhoods, will remain unchanged, and only a portion of the eastern portion of the project will be revised. The proposed changes would encompass 9.43 acres of the property. The proposed densities and development standards are compatible with the existing development standards and densities governing the adjoining residential communities. The developable area will not increase from the proposed changes. The request does not reduce the amount of green space shown on the approved final site and landscape plan. The previously approved traffic study completed in 2017 was administered with the maximum amount of 450 dwelling units considered. The applicant has received conceptual approval from the State Highway Administration to add a left turn lane from Maryland 197 onto Greenview Drive to facilitate movements of right in, right out, and left in at the intersection. Staff recommends that the City of Laurel Planning Commission recommend approval to the Mayor and City Council for Map Amendment 925 with the following conditions. 1. The applicant shall apply for and obtain preliminary subdivision plan revision approval from the City of Laurel Planning Commission. 2. The applicant shall apply for and obtain amended final site landscape plan approval from the City of Laurel Planning Commission. 3. The applicant shall apply for and obtain final record plat for subdivision approval from the City of Laurel Planning Commission. That concludes my report. The applicant's team is here to make a brief presentation and are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Before the applicant begins their presentation, are there any questions for staff? Okay. I'd like to invite Mr. Shep, if you would state your name and address for the record, and welcome.
Certainly. Thank you, Chairwoman Bettman and members of the Commission. William Ship here tonight on behalf of the applicant with law offices in Greenbelt, Maryland, just down the road. We are very pleased to be back before you in person. This is my first in-person hearing since all this pandemic world started, so it's great to be back live. I want to talk, we do have a brief presentation, but before I go into that, I want to just thank Mr. Love first for his work on the staff report. We have no disagreements on the staff report or the conditions that are recommended. Those are certainly what would be required and are very reasonable. What I want to say is what this application is and what it isn't. It is not an application to increase the density that was originally permitted by the city council when they approved the PUD amendment. That PUD amendment did allow up to 400. Now, as you know, through your process, we then had to go through subdivision and site. So at that time, the builder working with our applicant, my client, came up with a mix, and that added up to 389 units. That was what was reviewed at great detail by you and ultimately approved. This application is in response to further input from the builder based on the very strong market reaction they've got out in the market. The project's very well out on schedule, which is good news. And there's been a desire to make slight changes. And what that does is introduce more of one of the products that's already in the project. It's a 22-foot townhouse. And that would be 61 additional units from the 389 that were approved originally, but will not increase over the 450 that was originally authorized by the council. And I think that's an important distinction, that although we're here in the PUD amendment process, we're really not amending our PUD ordinance that was issued first that envisioned up to 450, but there's a different layout and a different mix of units and a different from what was approved with the site plan. So because of that difference, it was important to come back both to this board and also to the mayor and city council. We've been before them for a work session. We've been before them on the first public hearing. And now we're at this step, and we are hoping to get a recommendation of approval from this board so that we can then move to the city council back on the we have been anxious to participate in the process, have sent out all the required notices, and are anxious, should we get approval of the PUD amendment, ultimately to come back to you again. Even though this, if we're successful, this would be an authorization by the city council ultimately for 61 additional units. It doesn't mean we could go out and build those. We have to come back to you for a preliminary plan revision and for a site plan revision, which would give you and the public additional opportunity to review in detail the layout and the proposal for the 60 units. So with that, if there aren't any questions at this point, I'd like to go through our slide. This is just the cover sheet. And then you may recall we had some photo montage and renderings of what the project was envisioned to look like. Next slide. These are all from the original presentation. This is a rendering of what the entrance. Next, please. This is the approvals that Mr. Love described that have already taken. Next slide. This is the original layout that was approved with site landscape. More detailed than what was approved with PUD because it actually shows the lot layout. And you'll see in greater detail exactly where we're talking about, but just to point out to you, it's in the lower right-hand corner, the east of the property, the final phases of this project. It's on the other side of the first phases that adjoin the existing neighborhood. So this is the revision now showing at the lower right-hand corner. You can see that those are now townhouse lots, but the development envelope did not increase. We did not decrease the green space in the project, and we are maintaining the same relationship of the units in the project. So one of the questions that came up earlier when we came to you for the discussion about whether it was a substantial departure or not, is whether or not this new section would be visible or looming over the existing neighborhood. So we did a sightline study, and that's what this slide shows you. You see the red dashed line. That is a line that connects from on the lower left-hand corner, the existing neighborhood closest cul-de-sac, extending through the first phases of the project over to where it ends at the closest edge of the proposed revised area, the 9 acres that we're revising. That in all is about over 700 feet of distance. It's over 200 feet from the existing homes to the new section. So an additional 500 and across the water feature. And of course, you can't do it, but you would be looking through units. So the point of this slide is just to show you the relationship of the new section to the existing neighborhood, in that it is not changing the visual relationship to. Next slide. This is the original bubble plan that was approved with PUD, with the first PUD amendment. And this is where you might see some change. And, you know, it really is the main change between the original PUD and this application, this amendment. You see down there in the lower right-hand corner, the section labeled G is the bottom single-family section on the original PUD. Those sections that are labeled A, B, H on the left-hand side, and even C and D up at the top are not changing at all. So the next slide, please. That bright yellow section is the new section. It's a new I and G. So you can see it's actually a much smaller development envelope than what was approved with the original PUD in terms of the development envelope of houses. But I don't want to play any games with the commission and mislead you. That is the difference between the bubble plans, between the PUD amendment and what we're proposing here. But this layout here, if you recall, when we came in for the site and landscape plan, we were actually able to tighten up the development envelope. This is comparable to that, no bigger than what was approved on the site plan. Next. So density analysis. Next. This is from the original approval with the site and landscape plan that we are, if you include all of our land, at 2.03 units per acre, blended across the whole project, compared to 4.96 for Patuxent Glen and 13.0 for the condos Green Patuxent. Next slide. So when we went through the first time, there's a lot of discussion about the big open space parcel on the other side of Bear Branch. It's essentially not developable. It is wetland. Understand that it's part of our land holding, but we thought to make a density comparison, and we were asked to do it, so we took it out. This is again from the original. So that made the density comparison 2.84 for our project, 4.96 and 13 out. Next slide. So this is the comparison with the revision. It's now 2.34 with the revised additional 61 units versus the 496. And if you go to the next slide, which takes out the open space parcel again, it's 3.28 to 4.96. Now, one question that we did get from the council when we went to them was, well, what, you know, you have the large stormwater management facilities there, and Patuxent Glen doesn't have that. If you were to compare apples to apples, and we said, well, you know, the stormwater management is actually a wet pond. It is an amenity. We think it has great value to this community, but for purposes of taking it out, we did compute density. It's not in this slide because it was a question that came up, but I did want to point out that the density for the new proposal is still, I think it was about 4.6, 4.5 compared to the 4.9. So even taking out the stormwater management, we're comparable with the additional 61. Next slide. So traffic improvements, I know the board will remember a lot of discussion about traffic improvements and circulation. We did, with the original approval, come to an agreement about providing a circulation within the project to avoid bottlenecks. You may recall we did a number of studies where we thought we could create redundancy in, you know, if one section of street was blocked, how would you get around? We had a number of exhibits that showed how we did that, and we made some changes based upon this planning commission's input and concern about circulation. And again, the traffic analysis was based on the units. So the 61 were included in that volume discussion. So we have a roundabout planned at the main site entrance. We haven't installed it yet because of the construction truck traffic, which, you know, damage if we want to do it at a time when it can be completed and accepted by the city as part of the public road. And then we also are installing a dedicated left turn signal at Clubhouse 7, turns from 197 into Clubhouse. Right now, there is a left arrow, but it stops pretty quickly. And, just coming this way tonight, you could tell there is a visibility issue. So what we are going to do with resequencing that light is have a longer green left arrow that will stop the traffic coming on, and the light will sequence better to allow it in and have enough time so they don't have to, work with that gap on the solid green. There's kind of a hill that you can't see over right now. So the additional proposal for this amendment, which would really be fleshed out more in the preliminary plan and the site plan, is at the intersection at Greenview Drive 7, which is another one of the outlets from the greater neighborhood out into the main road. Right now, that is only a right turn in and a right turn out. And so one of the things, it's not necessarily an APF adequacy requirement for these 61 units because it didn't show up when we tested, but for operational purposes, we thought it would be an additional improvement. And we are proposing to add a left turn in from 197, which would mean there's a solid median there. We would do a median break with a stacking lane for left turns in, and it would be controlled with the signal at Clubhouse, so there'll be gaps for people to make that turn. Next slide, please. This shows that proposed improvement. So not only are we brainstorming internally about doing this improvement, we've gotten conceptual approval from SHA to actually install it. So we're pretty confident they're going to follow through when we give permit drawings to actually allow us. And that will provide an additional safety valve or additional entrance point into the greater neighborhood that will help not only our project, but the other neighborhoods. Next slide. As Rob said, we're maintaining the green space and stormwater management from the first proposal, no decrease in green space to accommodate. In fact, the townhouse units allow us to gain about an acre of additional common land for the HOA, which would be located proximate to the trail system, which means more green space that is enjoyable by all residents through change in the next slide. This is pretty much what I said. Let's go to the next. We have over 130 acres of and we're not revising any of the approval for the compensatory storage, gravel wetlands that we installed, or the stormwater retention facilities, the existing. We are maintaining those in their full size, complying with all the approvals by city, county, soil conservation district, MDE, and FEMA. Everybody's looking at this, and we're not going to change it or diminish it in any way. Next slide. So we have a few pictures that are recent drone photographs that show you how the community is coming along. Now, of course, there's still a lot of grading going on. So you see brown, it was early in the season, but it's starting to green up. You can see that pond is now a very prominent feature of the community. You will recall that the pond was there as part of the golf course, but it was just a pond. It overflowed and had no stormwater management function and did not do anything to control flow before it ultimately went into the Patuxent. This is now a fully code-compliant stormwater management facility that brings drainage from the whole drainage area, not just our project. In fact, that pond is picking up the edges, the existing neighborhood, and treating that in accordance with the most current best practices in code environment. And it is an interconnected pond system. There's piping between the water features, and you see in the back there the compensatory storage, which is an ultimate catch basin for everything that creates an amazing 40-acre water feature for this community, in addition to the stormwater management pond you see in the front. So there's really quite a bit of amenity built into this community. Next photo. This is a close-up of one of the sections that's coming together. And of course, those ponds will look a little better when they're converted from sediment control to actual final pond. And then I think we have a picture of some of the houses. one of the singles front. Next one. And this is what a typical townhouse project. Ryan Homes, you can see, is the builder. They're very excited about this community. They're doing very well. And from all the feedback we've gotten from folks who have moved in there, it's a very positive seat. I think that might be the last. Yep. So, couple other things that have come up through some of the discussions. The new section not only has the code required parking for each townhouse, we also have 43 guest spaces included in the layout in addition to our parking required for each unit. As I said, the traffic study was based on 450. And most important, I think, is to keep in mind that this is just the first step. And we're very hopeful, we're very respectfully requesting that we get a recommendation approval and we can get to the next step. But if we are successful, we'll be back to you very soon with a preliminary plan revision where you can look at all the things you look at in a preliminary plan and a site plan package that will show you the exact layout, the architecture, and everything with these new 61 units. And we can talk about all the things we've talked about in the past, including this new entrance into the greater community from Greenview Drive. So with that, I do have members of my team here, but they're really here just as a resource, and we're here to answer any questions you might have.
If you'll just stay right there. Do we have
Absolutely.
any questions for Mr. Ship? Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a question, just wanted to, for Robert, just wanted to confirm that all neighbors, neighborhoods back there off of Greenview received notification. In the past, we've had quite a bit of presence and input from, so I just wanted to verify that everyone has been notified.
That's correct.
Did the residents that have moved into the new neighborhood, do they also receive notification?
They did. It took a little bit longer because the GIS system, it takes about, we counted around 68 units that are occupied, and they did receive notice, correct?
Wonderful. If any of you are watching, welcome to Laurel as residents, and please get involved in our city and and all of that.
Can I add one thing?
Mr. Ship?
I think will be of interest to you that
Yes.
when we went through, we had a number of folks who said they had problems because of certified mail required. We sent regular mail to everybody as well. So we wanted to make sure everybody got the notice.
Thank you very much. Any questions for anyone on the team? They have, as he said, several members. Hearing none, if there are no questions, I would just like to say that, if you could please come, welcome, and if you could please come to the podium and first state your name and your address. Welcome.
Nina McDaniel, 14225 Greenview Drive, and I had concerns over the temporary stop signs they have on Greenview Drive now for the construction of the new subdivision. We were told that they would be removed within a couple of months, and they have not. I don't know if there's been any update on that or change in when they're going to remove.
Is there someone that could address that to her now, or can we take that, have someone speak to her? Robert?
I believe right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's still quite a bit of truck traffic right now, and for safety purposes, they want to keep those up for now. But as soon as they're done with that, then we'll be able to remove the signs, or they will be able to.
And what I wanted to suggest was we'd be happy to get with the resident and staff and coordinate conversations. So
Thank you, and thank you for attending tonight. Appreciate it. Since this does not require a public hearing, but I will ask if there is anyone else here wishing to speak. Hearing and seeing no one, I will entertain a motion. Ms. Bonner?
Motion to approve map amendment application number 925, ordinance number 1996, 14415 Greenview Drive.
For recommendation?
Oh, sorry. That's right. Okay, sorry. For recommendation to the mayor and city council.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Ms. Quillen, if you would please call the roll.
Ms. Bonner,
Yes.
Mr. Welford,
Yes.
Mr. Grant, Chairwoman Bettman,
Yes,
motion carries.
thank you. And the neighborhood is looking wonderful. Been down there and it looks very, very nice. And we look forward to seeing you back again. Thank you very much. Thank you. Before I move to adjourn, I would like to, you all are welcome to leave if you like. This will just be very quick. This is just addressed to staff, and if there is anyone else up here that would like to speak to this, and that is that tonight is our first meeting in person. We're very happy, thankful to staff. And again, I would like to thank those at Laurel TV that kept us moving with you, Robert and team, through all of this, and thank you for what you do. We have two members that were unable to be here tonight. Both of those members would have been available had they had the ability to call in. So we would just like to ask staff if they could check with mayor and city council and communications, if it would be appropriate at future meetings, not to just willy-nilly, some come, some not come, but if we have an in-person meeting and someone can participate by phone, a member, if that could be. I know there are some organizations throughout the county and the state of Maryland that have started opening up their meetings, but are offering both in-person and. So anybody else have a comment on that?
I would just add that maybe, I don't know if it's possible, but maybe not just by phone, but also by video on one of the TV screens. Like the Zoom, in-person / Zoom meeting.
Okay.
And like Missy said, not that everybody can just go and not come to the meeting, but in the occasion that somebody is out of town.
No, we will definitely, we'll address that with IT, with communications, and to see if there's a way that could possibly be done, most definitely.
Thank you very much. There is no further business. This meeting is adjourned.